Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Sean Mackey Show. He's so unpredictable. Mother Nature calls him for advice. Oh, all right, here we go. Season 2, episode number 15 of the Sean Mackey Show. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to pat myself on the back because no one else will. I'm going to get this out of the way. I'm going to tell you right now in this recap of the Bears versus the Giants, I'm giving them the booze. Game all the way around. It is. I mean, until the very end, that was a terrible, terrible game. The Bears did not get anything accomplished with any kind of consistency in the first half and for most of that second half. Yes, they finally get it together offensively late in the fourth quarter. They seal that victory against the Giants, but what a terrible game. You know what? I didn't make a single post on Facebook. I didn't yell at the television. I'm growing, people. I'm a growing individual. But man, this was another game. Caleb Williams missed a few throws. He had to scramble more than he should have because I felt he was given ample time in the pocket at the snap. But then it seemed like he's holding that ball too long, waiting for things to develop that just weren't there. I don't know if this kid can see the field properly or what's going on, but he'd take that snap and there would be time. He'd be in that pocket and he'd be in that pocket 2.5, 3 seconds. And then all of a sudden, the block would slip, whatever, the defensive end, high motor, just not giving up. Next thing you know, boom, Caleb's got to scramble, right? And either he's not seeing the field or some of these terrible ass defenses that the Bears are playing are just covering that well. Let that sink in for a moment. What am I trying to say here to you? I don't think Caleb is either he's not seeing the field properly or he sees the field but just can't pull the trigger, right? So he has to scramble a little bit unnecessarily. He's kind of doing this for most of the game. Yeah. People came out and said, he's the guy, the memes and shit. He's the guy that avoids the sack. He's the avoid the sack master. Okay, great. I love that about you. You're the avoid the sack master, right? But he's missing the reads. I don't know what it is. He's getting that snap. And okay, so he knows the plays. He knows where the receivers are supposed to be. So you have, as a quarterback, you're taught, you have that, you look, and it's boom, boom, boom. Now, the difference between the great quarterbacks in the NFL, they knew their defenses, who they were playing inside and out because they spent a lot of time in the film room. And look, this is one of those deals. I've talked about before on this show about dudes who played in professional sports and had to get jobs in the off season. Dudes who were dedicated. Now you got all these big high dollar contracts and it's a dude's job 24/7. Well, you know what? That also means being in the film room. That means watching film. Look, you're getting paid millions and millions and millions of dollars. Even during the season, you got a schedule with practices. You got a schedule with the, what do you want to call it? The dedicated time based on what your employer wants to see. But if you want to be great in the NFL, you have got to do things that your employer doesn't see. You've got to be watching that film. You got to know based on what you see, how the defense is lining up. You got to know where your target's going to be. Yes, you've got your progressions, but the good quarterbacks, they watch so much film. They're like, all right, I've seen this before. They're going to do one of two things or one of three things. And if they do this, they do that, they do this. I know where I'm going each time. If they do this, I got my number 2. So you're coming out and boom, you see them do that and bap, you just get rid of the ball. It's gone. You trust your receiver. So that's my little evaluation on Caleb Williams. All right. So at the beginning of the game, the Bears offense and defense, they both start out strong, right? I'm taking notes on the game. I'm watching. I'm in depth. I'm like, ooh, I got to get in there. Everything starts out really good. It's really strong. The Bears score first. About 5:46 to go in the first quarter, and the Bears hit, boom, 7-0. And then the Giants come and tie the game at just into the second quarter. 13:06 to go in the second quarter. And it's a tie ball game. It's 7-7. Now I'm looking at this Bears offense, then Bears defense, then Bears offense, and then Bears defense. And offensively, they didn't get anything done consistently. And defensively, they were giving up, they were holding the run game in check, but they were giving up about 8.1 yards per pass play with Jackson Dart. So the game stays tied 7-7 until the last seconds of the first half. And the Giants, the Bears hold, defense, they hold them. They kick a field goal to take the halftime lead 10-7. So boom, we come out in the third quarter, and we saw some good things in that first half. Austin Booker, this kid's going to get a little bit more playing time. He had a nice stunt. They pull a stunt on the D line right there, and boom, he's got a nice stunt and stuff for no gain. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, he picks up his second sack with the Bears, right? He'll add another one late in the game to help propel the Bears to victory. But we saw some good things happen in the first half, just not a lot of consistency. It just was not there, all right? Offensively, DeAndre Swift did pick up most of his 80 yards rushing in the first half. I think he had like 68 yards in the first half. And the Bears defensively held the Giants to only 23 rushing yards in the first half. Well, shit, if you watch the game, you know that that's going to change as soon as the second half starts, okay? Oh, excuse me. But for the second week in a row, the Bears secondary was up to their same old bag of tricks, giving up a lot of big plays. An 8.1 yard per pass average for Jackson Dart. Again, Tyreek Stevenson, the dude he was supposed to cover, Slayton, for the Giants in the first half before he got hurt. Hope he's okay. Slayton had like 3 catches for 85 yards. Just divide 85 by 3. Stevenson's given up, 22, 23 yards a catch. It's absolutely crazy. And for the first half, C.J. Gardner-Johnson and Tyreek Stevenson lead the team in tackles. And I'm of the firm opinion as a former defensive coach, if your DBs are leading the team in tackles, I mean, okay, it could mean several things. It means either the run game is really bad and your safeties are having to come up and make tackles downfield, and the run game is picking up 8, 9, whatever yards per carry, or the passing game is bad and dudes are making catches in front of your corners, your cornerbacks, and or your safeties, depending on what you were doing or what you were playing at that time, man or zone, and then they're able to wrap up and make the tackle. So the way I see it as a defensive guy, if I'm shutting things down, I want my defensive tackles and my linebackers to be my leading tackles, because that means you're hitting things up at the line of scrimmage and you're stopping things there at the line of scrimmage, right? If you've got defensive linemen, your edge rushers and your D tackles leading in tackles for loss and sacks, that means you're getting great pressure up front. So, when your DBs are leading the team in tackles, personally, I feel like you've got a problem, okay? But again, when your linemen and linebackers are leading, that means you're getting pressure up front, you're stopping the run game, you're shutting things down, okay? So when DBs lead in tackles, all bets are off, all right? So, and I know Caleb Williams, and we talked a little bit about this at the beginning, consistently, offensively, couldn't get nothing done. And I know Caleb's stat line was not helped by the 4 drops by Olamide Zaccheaus, right? But again, he still looked to hold on to the ball a little bit too long. Looked like he kept looking for the big play. He'd get time in that pocket and he'd go through his progressions a couple of times. It seemed like he was quick on the progressions, but then it was like he was looking for that big play, right? And he wasn't making those quick decisions that you want to see as a quarterback. And that comes from the film room and knowing your opponent and then knowing what offensively what you want to get accomplished. All right. Thankfully, his scrambling, and I see the replays on that, and I don't wonder if that wasn't a design play, but it did lead to the go ahead touchdown. So the Bears get the victory. We'll give them the kudos for that. In the fourth quarter, they get the victory, 24-20. There were some bright spots in the game. There were some dull spots, if you want to say the opposite, and go with that. But I just don't think the team was met with any kind of consistency. But I do like Ben Johnson saying, like, don't let us hang around in the fourth quarter because we'll make you pay. I love that mentality. I love that attitude. So that's a bright spot for the Bears. Rome Odunze, of course, after his dad chimes in and talking about trades, and Rome's like, yeah, my dad thinks his own way. I think my way. I love this city, blah, blah, blah. Next thing you know, he's targeted a shit ton more. But he has a good game. He has a great game. Colston Loveland comes on a little bit late and has a great game. I think Colston Loveland ended up with 4 receptions for 55 yards late in the game. Nice pass on a rollout. One of those that I thought Williams had some time, but he kind of scrambles a little bit and boom, across his, he hits Colston Loveland. Loveland's got to reach out for it. So that was a great catch. All right. So Luther Burden III, right? A great, nice grab on that final drive and puts the Bears into scoring position with Caleb Williams running the ball in, and they take the lead. And then it was like at that point up to the defense. So I think we're going to see a little bit more of LB3, Luther Burden III, Olamide Zaccheaus. One hit him in the hands in the end zone, should have been a touchdown. I think he ended up having like 4 drops on the day. The receiving core had like a total of 5, and Zaccheaus had 4 of them. So, nice bright spot to start the season, but I think the dude did not help himself and play very well in that game. And I think there's going to be some changes that are being made on the receiving core for the Chicago Bears. So we talked about this a little bit. I want to do chumps and champs, or champs and chumps, or greats and ain'ts. Haven't kind of figured it out now, but let's just say my champs for this game, Rome Odunze. He had 6 receptions, 86 yards. He had a touchdown. Of course, he had a good game. So he's one of my champs for the game. LB3, 3 catches, 51 yards, the clutch catch on the game-winning drive. All right, I gotta give Caleb a little bit of love. I'm still not entirely sold on him, but 2 drives in the fourth quarter that give your team the lead and you win the game, right? One first drive, 9 plays, 91 yards at 3:56 left to go in the game, and then that last drive, 4 plays, 53 yards, just under 2 minutes to play, and the Bears held defensively. So I'm going to give some champ love to Caleb Williams. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, 9 total tackles, 7 solo, had 2 sacks. So I'm really liking this pickup. He was a chump back when we played him, and he was with the Saints in that playoff game where, was it Wims? Was it Wims or Sims? I don't know. Old dude, Gardner-Johnson was talking shit, and old dude kind of smacked him a little bit. So he was a chump then, but he's one of those guys. You hate him when he's playing against you, and when he's on your team, you hate him a little bit less. That was Ozzie Guillen, folks. White Sox manager, Ozzie Guillen, right? Chumps for this game, I'm throwing it out there. Tyreek Stevenson, too many big plays given up, right? Especially that first scoring drive that the Giants scored to make it 7-7. I think 2 plays were right in front of Tyreek Stevenson and his guy. And so this dude, he can go the Kyle Fuller route with me and just get rid of his ass. Don't need him. Olamide Zaccheaus, 4 drops, didn't help his cause. He's a chump for this game. And the receiving core. I mean, total, and I said earlier they might have had 5. They had like 8. The receivers in total had 8 drops. And Zaccheaus had 4 of them on his own. So those are my champs. Those are my chumps for this game, the Bears versus the Giants. That's my recap. That's my take. Now we're going to finish out this episode with the new segment that we talked about debuting here on the Sean Mackey Show, and that's Forgotten NFL Legends. Some of these dudes are going to be legends for what they did on the field. Some of these dudes are going to be legends for what they did off the field. And some of these dudes are going to be legends for how they combined the two. Our first legend is a Chicago Bears legend who combined the two on and off the field to do some great things. So that's what we're going to talk about here with Forgotten NFL Legends. And our first legend to kick it off with is 19-year-old Danny Fortman. Fortman. Danny Fortman. Danny Fortman was 19 years old when the Bears, Papa Bear, George Halas, drafted him in the 9th and final round of the very first NFL draft back in 1936. 19 years old, the 78th pick in the NFL draft, all right? Nobody even noticed that Danny Fortman got drafted. He was 19 years old. At that time in life, most kids are figuring out what they're going to do. Are we going to play sports, college, job? 19 years old. That means he wasn't even that far out of high school. Most of the time you graduate high school at 18. So at that age, at 19, you're trying to figure out, am I going to go to a trade school? Am I going to go to college? Am I just going to get a job? I don't know. Danny Fortman, he had a different dilemma. He was like, do I go to medical school or do I play professional football? All right, let me tell you this right now. If I got the choice to go to school or play professional football, I'm going to play professional football. But to put things in perspective, I started growing up, I started my life in 1968, and we're in 2025. So NFL players get paid a shit ton of money, a lot more than they do. And yes, you could play successfully in the NFL for 2 or 3 years, have enough money to do whatever the fuck you want. Work again for the rest of your life or go to medical school. I don't know. This is 1936. This is a time when 19-year-old Danny Fortman is like, college, trade school, NFL, medical school. And he's just like, holy shit. So you got to put it in perspective. They don't get paid a lot of money to play in the NFL. So he definitely is probably leaning on the side of medical school. He knows, he's like, man, for my future, for my life, I'm 19. I got a long life ahead of me. I got to make some money. I got to do some good in the world. I got to get a medical. I got to get a doctor. I got to become a doctor, right? Well, Papa George was like, hey, man, I get it. I know where you're coming. And so one of his dreams, medical school, it offers the stability, a great career, helps other people. And then the other one, this guy's going to go in the NFL, and it's like, yeah, this is kind of a new league. We don't know what's going on. They don't pay very much. We don't think you can play. There's no guarantees, right? I kind of just said that all. But George Halas comes in, and he sits Danny Fortman down, and he says, look, man, just do both. I believe you can do both, and I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, and I'm going to give you the money for medical school. Just come play for me and the Bears. And Danny Fortman's like, boom. So in May of that year, 1936, he signs on the dotted line. He's the youngest kid ever to play and wear an NFL uniform at the time. I've been seeing some things this year in college football. There's some true freshmen who are only like 19-year-olds starting at the college, D1, BCS schools. Love it. Love to see it, right? So medical school's tough for him. And so he goes and he plays with the Bears, but most of the time he doesn't even practice. He just shows up on the weekend, he suits up, and boom, he's ready to go. And he knew football wasn't the end goal for him. It was a means to an end. Play football, get my medical school deal started here, become a doctor. I want to be a surgeon. That's his true calling, right? But George Halas and the Bears, it kind of gets into you. That's why we fans stick around for so long. And at one point, Fortman says, George Halas, salt of the earth guy. I have the most respect for that guy ever. Well, right? I would too. Okay. This kid goes into the NFL and he's just showing up on weekends to play the games, and he just doesn't have a roster spot. He's dominating in the NFL. The coaches in the league at the time vote him one of the best players in the league in 1939, the year my father was born. He piles up more recognition than anyone in the game. By 1940, he's a Bears captain, okay? And he's steering the Bears through one of the greatest times they ever had. The Bears go to back-to-back titles in 1940 and 41. They're just knocking people out all over the place. They have a great running game, and Fortman is the heart. He's called the heart and soul of that running game, all right? And after the 1940 season, they don't just say he was one of the best linemen in the NFL. They say, like, he was the absolute best, the best, okay? So now, by December 8th, 1940, NFL game that lives on in infamy, the Bears versus the Redskins. It's the championship game, right? 3 weeks earlier, the Redskins beat the Bears. So that's a tough, if you've ever been in a position where you got to play an opponent for the championship that had beaten you, man, mentally, that's a hard sell, right? So, but Halas, he doesn't let them forget it. He reminds them of them losing to the Redskins. By the time the kickoff happens, Danny Fortman said the Bears were so fired up, so tightly wound, they were uncontainable. What happens in that game? The Bears have the most lopsided victory in a championship game. They beat the Redskins 73 to nothing. And Fortman thinks Halas is a genius because of that strategy. He fired those guys up. He was like, you suck. You lost to the Redskins. They're going to kick your fucking ass again. You don't deserve to be here. I don't know. That's all I can imagine that Papa Bear might have been saying to get his team fired up, right? So at one point, one of his teammates, quarterback Bob Snyder, said Danny Fortman was the perfect football player. He was the most important man on the roster. Chicago goes 11-0 in the regular season. They get to the Washington championship game, a rematch, and they lose. All right. But by that time, after 1940, Danny Fortman, he's already built his legacy in the NFL. He tries to walk away from the game in 1943. He was still working on that doctor degree, working in medicine, right? George Halas, he's got that way, so they say, and he pulls him back in. Every time I think I'm out, they pull me back in. Right? And so he spends weekdays practicing medicine at Pittsburgh's Presbyterian Hospital. Then he gets on a plane Saturday night. He joins the Bears for Sunday's game. He suits up, beats the living shit out of everybody, right? He anchors a team that would once again face the Washington Redskins for the title. And this time, 1943, the Bears win again. And that was it for Danny Fortman. 5 days after that game in 1943, he retires. 8 seasons, 86 games, 3 championships, all the while a medical career waiting for Danny Fortman on the other side. He never saw football as his final destiny, but you ask anyone who watched him play, he left behind a legacy that was anything but temporary. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure that Danny Fortman went on to be a doctor for an NFL team. So give me a few minutes here, and I'm pretty sure that Danny Fortman kind of gave back to the game that he loved and shaped his career so much. Let's see. Oh, he was commissioned in 1945 as a lieutenant in the United States Navy. He was licensed to practice medicine in California and began practicing on Hollywood Boulevard in Los Angeles. He worked as a surgeon at St. Joseph's Hospital in Burbank, California from 48 to 84. He became the hospital's chief of staff in 1965, and he also served as the team physician for the Los Angeles Rams from 1947 to 1963. Forgotten NFL legend, doctor, and NFL great, Danny Fortman. That's it for me. I'm out. Peace. Hey, if I made you laugh, made you think, or even made you smile, please tell all your friends. If I didn't, Just keep that shit to yourself. Thanks for listening to The Sean Mackey Show.